Welcome back. We have much more ahead on the catastrophic flooding we've been following in Texas and Louisiana, but we also have new breaking news here into CNN, and that is reports of another North Korean missile launch, this coming from South Korean news agencies. This missile, they report, traveling over U.S. ally Japan, an extremely threatening move. We have the advantage of the only Western reporter inside North Korea at the moment. That is CNN's Will Ripley. Will, tell us what you're hearing there inside Pyongyang.
Hi, Jim. The Japanese Prime Minister's office just tweeted moments ago that North Korea has apparently launched a missile in the early morning hours. That missile potentially could be in the air right now. Japanese state broadcaster NHK has just reported that the missile has actually, as you mentioned, flown over Japan. There have been notices going out called a J alert to people living in Japan's northern regions, including Hokkaido, to take cover. This is a system that Japan put in place after previous North Korea launches to make sure that people have a plan in the event of a provocative act such as a North Korean missile launch. But if indeed these reports are accurate, that the missile has not only approached Japan but has now overflown Japan, that raises the question, where is this missile headed? What is North Korea trying to do? We know that North Korean officials, and they've been telling us here in Pyongyang, they have said that this is an extraordinarily tense time because of the ongoing, regularly scheduled joint military drills that are now in their second week. Those drills happening just miles from where I am here in Pyongyang in South Korea. Thousands of South Korean troops training alongside U.S. soldiers. And North Korea has been issuing warning after warning about this, including a letter that was just written to the United Nations Security Council, where North Korea said that they're watching very closely the actions of the United States. They said the situation is approaching what they say a tipping point, and they have said that if there is some sort of an escalation, that North Korea doesn't take responsibility for it. They say that the U.S. would be responsible for that. And so what we've seen over these last several days is a series of warnings. Over the weekend, North Korea launched 3 short-range ballistic missiles, 2 of them traveling just over 150 miles, coming down in the waters off of Japan. And now this breaking news, apparently a new missile launch this morning. This missile launch much more provocative than the launch over the weekend, if indeed these NHK reports are accurate that the missile has overflown Japan. Obviously, there's a lot of fear in this region. There has been a lot of tension building up ever since that threat several weeks ago when North Korea talked about firing an intermediate-range missile and bringing it down less than 20 miles from Guam, home to Andersen Air Force Base, Naval Base Guam, more than 160,000 American citizens. Secretary of State Tillerson, just within the last week or so, praised North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un for showing restraint, for not going through with that launch plan. And we don't know where this missile is headed. We haven't gotten any official confirmation from North Korea. That likely won't come for at least several more hours. Normally, the outside world learns about this sort of thing first, and then North Korea confirms it later on. But we have seen an uptick on military activity here on the North Korean side. Not only that missile launch over the weekend, but also a special forces operation that Kim Jong-un was supervising. Those images released on state media also over the weekend. And now these new reports, once again, of another North Korean missile launch, with alerts going out to people living in Japan's northern regions to take cover. Jim?
Let's just make clear to our audience here the significance of this. First of all, the range of the missile, taking it over Japan, brings it to a different range than the missile launches we saw just on Friday, those 3 shorter range missiles. Japan, a U.S. ally. Japan, home to several U.S. military bases, housing tens of thousands of U.S. troops, warships, aircraft, etc. At this point, what will be happening is U.S. Intelligence, satellites, etc., will be measuring the trajectory of this missile to see exactly how far it was going, to what altitude it went. All this kind of data is going to tell us exactly what kind of missile it was. Medium range, long range, ICBM possible. We don't know those details yet. But you make a good point, Will, here. This is one in a series here. And just after, I might remind our audience, last Tuesday, President Trump said at a rally in Phoenix that it appears that North Korea now respects the U.S. But what kind of message does a missile launch like this shot over Japan, what kind of message is North Korea, based on its past history, trying to send not just to the region, but to the U.S. as well?
Well, and pardon the noise behind me, Jim. This is the hourly tune that plays on loudspeakers here in Pyongyang. It's a song to remind people of the sacrifices of their late leaders. You'll hear it playing for the next few minutes. The North Korean officials, when we landed here, they made very clear that even though there had been several weeks in terms of a pause of activity on the military side because there hadn't been any launches from North Korea since the intercontinental ballistic missile launch at the end of July, they said that we should not be fooled by that. They said this is the most tense, and this is in the words of North Koreans, this is the most tense situation on the peninsula that they had personally experienced in a number of years. And they traced it back to that rhetoric, that back and forth between President Trump when he threatened to rain fire and fury on this country, said that the American nuclear arsenal was locked and loaded. Long after the U.S. news cycle moved on from that and we were talking in the United States about other things, North Korea has still been sitting here. They've been steaming about that. They haven't forgotten about it, but sometimes their response takes time. And so there was rhetoric, and now we're starting to see in this second week of the military drills, North Korea clearly sending a message to the U.S., a message of defiance, a message that they have their own arsenal that they say they are not afraid to use if they feel they are provoked. And so while the first week of exercises was quiet, now here we are in week 2, and just in the last few days, we've seen 3 short-range missiles being launched. We've seen a special forces operation with commandos apparently practicing a dry run for an attack on South Korean islands. And now this morning, another missile launch. As you said, the type of missile we don't know. We don't know even where it's headed just yet. That is being tracked by the United States, by Japan, and by South Korea right now. But clearly this is, once again, an escalating situation that has gone beyond the rhetoric, and now North Korea is trying to demonstrate its military activities. But North Korea has launched dozens and dozens of missiles, more than 80 missiles under Kim Jong-un, more than his father and grandfather combined. All of these launches thus far have been test runs designed to show the United States and its allies the capabilities of North Korea. These are not missiles that have been aimed at a city. These are not, we believe, missiles that have been armed with an actual warhead. And so while we don't know at this point what has been launched or where it's headed, if we look at previous actions by North Korea, they have conducted these missile tests as a way to demonstrate force, but not as an actual attack on anybody. But that certainly is little reassurance for the citizens in Japan who received a J alert on their phones just within the last few minutes telling them that they need to take shelter. This is obviously a very frightening development for people in the region. Here in North Korea, they are constantly on a war footing, and so we're seeing a demonstration of that unfolding live right now.
We're going to continue to check back in with Will Ripley. He's the only Western reporter inside North Korea right now. That music, by the way, you're hearing in the background, as Will noted, is music they play every hour there as a tribute to their leaders. I want to give this update because we just got this in the last couple of minutes to our viewers. South Korea's Joint Chiefs have issued a statement that North Korea fired an unidentified projectile into the sea east of the Korean peninsula, and the Japanese broadcaster NHK has now alerted that that missile flew over Hokkaido, it's a northern island of Japan, and into the Pacific Ocean, now sending out alerts to the Japanese population. We're going to continue to stay on top of that story with North Korea. Meanwhile, coming up, we're going to...
From our studios in Tokyo, this is NHK Newsline. I'm Ross Mihara. Japan's government says North Korea has fired 1 missile over the northeastern Japanese region of Tohoku. It landed in the Pacific Ocean in the early morning on Tuesday. There are no reports of damage. The missile landed almost 1,200 kilometers off the coast. Tensions between North Korea and the U.S. have been high after U.S. President Donald Trump ramped up his rhetoric against the reclusive country. The world has watched as Pyongyang has improved its missile and nuclear capabilities, with observers debating how far those capabilities have improved. Over the weekend, Pyongyang launched 3 short-range missiles into the sea.
我が国北朝鮮が弾道ミサイルを発射し、我が国の上空を通過した模様でありますが、直ちに情報の収集分析を行います。そして国民の生命に対して国民生命をしっかりと守っていくために万全を期してまいります。
We'll have more details on the latest North Korean missile launch as they become available.